Greetings to all who will watch this video. My name is Kumo Obwenze. I am a Gunga, which is considered a healer amongst other things, for my King, His Majesty Adamangana of the First Nations Babongo Pygmies of Gabon. Furthermore, I'd like to acknowledge all on this land presently where I am located in this moment in Costa Rica, starting with the Bribri, the Baruka, the Turaba peoples, the Maluku, and the ones further south into Panama in those areas. All Indigenous First Nations people. And this is what my talk will revolve around today. Perhaps juxtaposed with what is highlighting or making interest for people with Indigenous traditions today, and whether that is the ethic upon which we should be approaching the Indigenous First Nations people. As an Australian originally, I have close associations and ties with First Nations people of Australia, growing up in those environments, being born perhaps wired towards understanding and empathy for people who once lived in harmony. Now these things make grandiose sense to me as to why I was that way, because I am who I am now in this situation, working for our community and for First Nations people. It just so happens that today we're in a situation where I feel that First Nations people are being contacted in the modern Western world primarily around a transaction that can be obtained. What I mean by this is there's sacrament involved. I'll take my tradition right now as an example. We obviously use Iboga, but amongst Iboga there are a complete library of plants of which we use, because all Indigenous use plants for traditional healing. But it just so happens to be that the sacrament, which is the plant medicine referred to as the plant medicine in the Western world, is what brings someone to the Indigenous tradition. This is where I'll launch in. I found myself involved with Indigenous people not because of any sacrament. There was nothing I wanted from them. There was something I wanted to give to them. I wanted to give myself to them, because I was already feeling in my soul that people of First Nations all around the world that come from these classical eras, beyond our modern Western understanding over the last 5,000 years even, come from harmony, oneness, seeing that they were no different from the things around them. In fact, all was the same. And there's so much implied with what I'm saying in here. People that perhaps had followed me in the past or had been treated by us here would have an understanding of where I'm going with this particular realization. The self-realization that you are everything, that you are permanent, and the things around you are transitory, and that we are here as visitors, that this body, this vessel, all Indigenous feel the same way, belongs to the tierra, to the ground. It belongs to the earth, the Mother Earth, the maternal earth, the physical world, the transitory world. But our true identity is the spiritual seed, the knowing. All Indigenous lived with this harmony in mind. When someone lives in knowing and self-realization, they realize their oneness. And I'll take the word there away from their oneness, period. Because once oneness is obtained or seen in self-realization, there is no longer a there or we or I. So Indigenous First Nations people are now being contacted not because of their oneness or harmony, or their ability to live as guardians and stewards of what sustains the earth, the oceans, the forests. Rather, their sacrament and what can be given to the person seeking, which is the colonized mind on display. which I've had topics about before, conversations about before. So in other words, our well-intended mission is an obscuration. So we start by thinking, okay, I would like to be healed. And then all of a sudden we become someone culturally misappropriating indigenous traditions that have been sold, which is against the harmony of which I'm talking about with indigenous traditions. So we find ourselves wearing beads and wearing indigenous items and things like this because we want something, not because we wanted to walk in and live in harmony with them and sacrifice and renounce our physical material world as it is in its current position, i.e. by accepting it, but in the renunciation is something far deeper. It doesn't mean by cutting away all your physical items. It's by transcending the physical items and realizing they're you, and then limiting your interaction with. So here, to be more concise, I am saying that people of today, in great majority, find themselves involved with Indigenous still with this transactional mind. They wanted something. For example, recently we did a fundraising event, which is one of many for our dear Bree brothers of this land. No one was interested in donating any money on Kickstarter or GoFundMe or anything unless they could be given something in terms of medicinal plant knowledge or something else that they could profit from. And I'm not even talking about on a monetary level, I'm talking about mainly on the mental level, the ego could profit from. So in other words, that's the transactional mind on display now. And I would appeal to people to listen to me, not translate me or to be offended by me, and look, because if you are being offended by these things, you need to look at yourself, not me. I'm saying we need to be very careful what our intentions are when we contact Indigenous. The problem is that we're not aware and we find ourselves involved with them, and when we're involved with them we try to make it more smooth on the fly. But that smoothing out is actually an unconscious result of the incorrect movement in the beginning of going to them to get something. Can we feel about this? I've talked about this in other ways before, the importance of having no other agenda other than harmony. If we would like to learn from the Indigenous of any land, in every single country around the world, we need to approach them with love in our hearts. And love is not transactional. Love is not attachment. Love is not a projection. Let me say this. Love is purely innocent, meaning there's no projection. There's no mental projection on them at all. So no idea at all. There's oneness. This is how they are wired beyond their current ego experience, the Indigenous of this land. So I'm watching this too. It's why I'm in the position I am with Mboka Njambe in Gabon as the bridge to the Western world. This assists our projects and programs through the non-for-profit that we are. And to be able to deconstruct people approaching us so they can really fit in and mesh with us and learn this harmony. Learn to drop the idea that they came to me originally for Iboga. They come to us, for in our case, for Iboga, because they have a problem. But when they're here, they're quickly educated that there was never a problem other than a lack of harmony and a lack of true self-realization, and that what they really needed was not the Iboga even, but rather the spiritual mentoring, in our case, of Bwiti, which is of oneness, of harmony, of God in self, reconciliation of God in self, in Butsu and our tradition. All of these Indigenous First Nations traditions, they're beyond a tradition, have these processes of oneness, which is completely cannot be seen. This is where I'll go from here, by the mind. The mind I'm referring to now is the ego, the thinking mind. The thinking mind can never understand the indigenous person's mind. Now, what gets tricky here is, I was just saying that a second ago, the indigenous of today are still wired towards the quietness, but they're not really in awareness of their new push into the ego. They're still very delicate and innocent with their movement into the ego further, if they're living away, I'm talking about, not the indigenous that are now living and interacting with us on different levels. Now, they're not aware of the opposite movement of what I'm talking about. The Westerner's not aware that he's using the mind, so we are the ones responsible to actually protect and preserve the innocent, quiet mind, the one that accepts and believes in brotherhood of man and unity, and that opens their arms towards you. But then when you arrive, just like the original missionaries of the Catholic Church, you arrive in a black robe with a small white piece here, and the black always meant God. And then once you rallied them all into the church, you took off the black robes, and voila, you had the white, which is death. So we need to understand this movement. It starts with, you're interested, in this case, in something that they have, as I was inferring. So I would say at this juncture, we need to actually, if we really want something from Indigenous, we need to drop our urgency to have something fulfilled for ourselves. The only thing the Indigenous are asking us of the land, the Indigenous of the land are asking us, is for harmony. But here you come with something that is material want. The mind wants to be fulfilled, which is the material element of you. The body wants to be fulfilled. It's full of desires, and it's full of wants and needs, compulsions. It's so incredibly dangerous when we approach the Indigenous. This is why the Indigenous have actually been slaughtered around the world. Because the colonizers come and they want. You see the danger? You're still wanting a sacrament from us even. Without someone like me here, you'd be hurting our people, which is happening all through Gabon. Anywhere outside of Mboka and Jambe, unequivocally, right now, is colonizing and exposing the tradition. Whether they think they're a good provider or anything else. If they've paid for the tradition, as I've said many times, I'm not going to go into that, they're selling the tradition. That's not the case. There's nothing real about that. That's not harmonious. So I'm, as you can see, not selling an Iboga retreat. And this is the identity that here we have to have, because how do I actually possibly get people to approach the Indigenous correctly? First, I get them looking, okay, that's familiar, and then we calibrate them towards why they're really coming, which is a oneness and a harmonious requirement, which is realizing we're everything. This is why Iboga exists. This is why something like ayahuasca and the dietas exist. This is why any sacrament exists. So we can take sacraments until the cows come home. I've said this many times as well. I've seen people working with something like Iboga for over 15 years and still not understand it at all. It cannot resolve someone's constant want to use the mind. It requires the understanding from Buiti spiritualism, or in other cases from the curanderos in other traditions and things, to explain how to live with the plant, how to work with the plant, what to do. There's no such thing in the West, if we consider Iboga once again, because that's where I'm working. Now, you look at the nonsense, the proliferation of nonsense that's online. Not one bit of it. Not one bit of it. Even someone's testimonial, although they're very nice and we love them and they're good, not real, are not true. Because this is about you, so it's not about harmony. So you're reading a whole lot of information about Iboga online. This is not how to do Iboga. At the moment they're telling you to set intentions and that it fixes this and fixes that. All this is doing is creating a whole lot of expectation. And then they say don't have any expectations, which is the most hilarious thing I've ever heard. So here, one hand, you're reading all this information, told to do something, and then you come in and you've got to have none of those expectations, which is an impossibility for the hungry, compulsive mind of the West, the locust. The locusts come, absorb all the information, then come to Iboga or something like that and don't get what they want because they control it the entire time through the wants. This is why I'm trying to actually, well, not trying, I donate my entire life to actually pointing the goalposts, if you will, towards people aligning with what this true message is, which is a passive message, which is to lie down and to learn message. Nothing is correct. This is the big concern. There's no correct spiritualism online, number one, because it isn't taught. The people that are in proliferation with Iboga have all paid for a title and none of it's real. So they're not educated or taught. They don't live in a real community. It's something different. So this is why we have a lack of education with our particular field. But when we apply it to any indigenous message or tradition, it is the same thing. We're reading things online based on Westerners' interactions or anthropologists' interactions. Now, indigenous traditions, all of them that I know, are always very clever about allowing anyone to purport anything about their tradition. It has to be earned through initiation and living within a community and being trusted. So the information you're all receiving has been doctored. It's not real. If you were to go and possibly be accepted by any of these true indigenous people, it'd take many years for them to trust you. It's like my situation. So the beginning and the end of all of this, the alpha and omega of all things here, and the message is, I make myself readily available for humanity, free of agenda. So the number one freedom that I have is monetary exchange. I don't have to worry about that. I'm free. So I have no motivation to make this video currently unless I'm trying to free people of the motivations, the agenda. This is actually Indigenous Protection 101 right here on this talk. I'd like people to actually overcome their own perhaps blindness even listening to this and don't see me as a Gunga and a Somba in this tradition. Don't see me as anything. See me as you and listen to the message. Don't translate the message to what's something you want. Watch your reactions. Stay neutral so you can learn. And then you might see that perhaps this is someone I could speak to about these particular topics because I'm surely putting myself out there this way so I can assist in some way with Indigenous relations between the modern Western mind and the Indigenous mind, which is my specialty. So I come from a Western background, clearly. I understand. I went through a whole process of over complexity with my own mind and neuroses driving it to the point of break until it has to become one and drop everything and become spiritual. That's why I am here. But in that process, you learn very much how the Western world is living in this neurotic, cerebral situation, in the illusion of things. The most illusory people on the planet are the ones living in the modern Western world in materialism. Indigenous is still living in the forest. There's nothing material about that. That's natural. So I clearly do the opposite now. So I've moved through my cycle of life into understanding, and in our life of becoming self-realized or aware, that is the process. We are born into nature to discover our oneness and to cease it all. So for me, the Alpha and Omega movement is prominent. It's happening. The death has started. So this is why I'm here. I'm here to actually say to people, I can offer my time, even for you to perhaps want to contact a Native American Indian tribe. Could be a Colombian tribe. It could be anyone, or even someone that's currently speaking to you that's Indigenous. I'm offering a gentle, understanding love, an ability to look at them and go completely quiet Not one thought in the face of those people. Feel the energy and feel the gentle nature, the power. To hear God, we can't be busy in the mind with the compulsions, the desires, the fears, the angst, the agitation, everything else. Or the illusion is completely starving your soul, so you can't hear the quiet that is the Indigenous. If you'd ever sit with an Aboriginal First Nations of Australia in the desert regions, and the conversation stops, the peace is almost unbearable for a modern mind. To me, it's paradise. It's what stabilizes me and brings me to center. So this is why I'm here. Yes, this is Akara, a Western outreach on behalf of Mboka Njambe, God's Universal Village in Gabon. Yes, we are Bwiti, according to the Babongo tradition, Myobe and Desumba. We are here with the same brotherly love, peace, love and grace that all Indigenous offer us, Westerners. So tread lightly. What I mean by treading lightly is be mindful. That term has been destroyed. Be aware of your own thinking. Watch your own thinking. Watch the mind. If you'd like to approach these people gently and assist them, watch the colonizing mind. As I said, the entire plant medicine movement as it exists today is colonizing. You all have something to answer for. You might say, okay, I have, a shaman that I help his family and everything else, but you wanted the plant to sell. So stop with the justifications. If you have a shaman that's been willingly moved from his community situation, okay, any at all, he's actually considered in the deep levels of all of the Indigenous traditions as someone who's now impure. You've taken him out of his environment, and his environment was his community, and his community was what he was responsible for, and now he's come to take your money, and you've just polluted him. You've made him impure. He now has a dependency. He now sees that he can buy more things. He now sees he can swim up the stream of the materialist salmon to get the illusory pot of gold at the end of the river, only to rebreed and to go back down. You put him straight into that movement, that migration. A shaman, a curandera, a gunga, anyone living in the Western world that is from a community, trained in a community, initiated as part of the community, his role is to serve the community, to serve his people. You take him away, of course he's going to take your money, and you've just colonized him. Any of them coming to this country or anywhere else are all coming because they'll hide behind the message, and they'll even if they don't know premeditatingly, they will hide behind, I'm doing this for humanity. If you were doing it for humanity, you'd be like the Bree or our village. You'd be in your village, living with all of your people, healing your people, and having roles within the community that are being fulfilled. And in case of me, having someone who had been chosen by High Master, Grand Master, Nima, King in our case, that oversees his work and that is trusted and that is on the move, moving away from materialism but towards the village life. This is not a critique. This is a fact. Anyone, please, you're considering you want plant medicine, you want this, you want that, you go somewhere, it seems authentic because a man's got feathers and teeth on and is a 10th generation shaman. That's very, very true, perhaps. But the fact is the shaman shouldn't be on Instagram. And that's funny because here I am. Except I'm not claiming to be anything. I'm the bridge. A true shaman will not be on Instagram. A true shaman cannot be found or purchased or bought. You'll be taken to him. He will have a community, and in that community you'll have representative figures that work as according to a cosmovision. Westerners are not privy to those movements or the vision that's earned through initiations. Please, everybody listening today, Consider your approach towards these traditions and these beautiful people, because it's not about the sacraments. It's about you knowing that you want something, and that want is so strong that it can easily be bribed and bought and purchased and extorted out of people's innocence. This is why I'm here as a wall of defense for my community and village, because we will not have extortion. All Westerners come via me. It's very dangerous, you see. We're protecting. So we are balancing act between putting ourselves out there. There has to be a wall of defense. The Bribri are very clever of this land, which we're closely associated with. They have 3 tiers to their community. People think they're getting the real Bribri, but in actual fact, you're nowhere near it. The true Bribri living up on the mountains, the sacred mountains, have never even been contacted by colonizers. The Spanish in this case. So just be aware and mindful. Once again, see through even my situation. I'm just one cultural expression of the brotherhood of man with Bwiti and Iboga. This is our particular cultural expression of the oneness. Bribri have their cultural expression of the oneness and cosmovision. This is ours. Just know that we're all here for the one reason. All of you are me. I see no others. And I wouldn't plea if I didn't believe people were capable of seeing a factual truth. What I speak is truth. It's not a debate. It's merely pointing out what people can't see when you're blinded by the transactional mind, the colonizer mind, the mind that wants. You want healing? Drop all want and seek harmony and peace through the Indigenous. Speak to someone like me. The healing can begin. So I will express my deepest and most profound expression of peace, love, grace on earth for humanity, oneness. See through the words that are illusory that I say. Hear the meaning which is you. The words I say have no content. The meaning that you hear is where you'll hear my truth, not in my words. Seek beyond.